Okay, hi there, year three. So, where Miss Lopez left off in our book is the moment where the farmers have got a plan all laid out for how they're going to catch and trap the Iron Man and get rid of them forever, in their view. So, next part of the chapter. In this video, I'm going to finish chapter 2. Then they'd bring the few bulldozers and earth movers that he hadn't already eaten, and they'd push the pile of earth in on top of him and bury him forever in the hole. They were certain now that they'd get him. Next morning, in great excitement, all the farmers gathered together to go along to examine their trap. They came carefully closer, expecting to see his hands tearing at the edge of the pit. They came carefully closer. The red lorry stood just as they had left it. Remember, the lorry is their bait, like a worm for a fish. They're trying to feed that lorry to the Iron Man. But it lay there. The soil lay just as they had left it, undisturbed. Everything was just as they had left it. The Iron Man had not come. Nor did he come that day. Next morning, all the farmers came again. Still, everything was just as they had left it. And so it went on, day after day. Still the Iron Man never came. Now the farmers began to wonder if he would ever come again. They began to wonder if he had ever come at all. They began to make up explanations of what had happened to their machinery. No one liked to believe in an iron monster that eats tractors and cars. Soon, the farmer who owned the red lorry they were using as bait decided that he needed it, and he took it away. So there lay the beautiful deep trap without any bait. Grass began to grow on the loose soil. The farmers talked of filling the hole in. After all, you can't take a giant pit like that and just leave it. Somebody might fall in. Some stranger coming along might just walk over it and fall in. But they didn't want to fill it in. It had been such hard work digging it. Besides, they all had a sneaking fear that the Iron Man might come again, and that the hole was their only weapon against him. At last, they put up a little notice, "Danger, keep off," to warn people away, and they left it at that. Now, the little boy Hogarth had an idea. He thought he could use that hole to trap a fox. He found a dead hen one day, and he threw it out onto the loose soil over the trap. Then towards evening, he climbed a tree nearby and waited. A long time he waited. A star came out. He could hear the sea. And then, there, standing at the edge of the hole, was a fox. A big red fox, looking towards the dead hen. Hogarth stopped breathing, and the fox stood without moving, out towards the hen, but he did not step onto the trap. Slowly he walked around the wide patch of raw soil till he got back to where it started, sniffing all the time out towards the bird, but he did not step out onto the trap. Was he too smart to walk out there where it was not safe? But at that moment he stopped sniffing and looked towards the top of the cliff. Hogarth, wondering what the fox had seen, looked towards the top of the cliff himself, and there, enormous in the blue evening sky, stood the Iron Man. On the brink of the cliff, gazing inland, and in a moment the fox had vanished. Now what? Hogarth carefully, quietly, hardly breathing, climbed slowly down the tree. He must get home and tell his father. But at the bottom of the tree he stopped. He could no longer see the Iron Man against the twilight sky. Had he gone back over the cliff into the sea? Or was he coming down the hill in the darkness under that high skyline towards Hogarth and the farms? Then Hogarth understood what was happening. He could hear a strange tearing and creaking sound. What do you think the Iron Man's doing just now? a tearing and a creaking sound. The Iron Man was pulling up the barbed wire fence that led down the hill, and soon Hogarth could see him as he came nearer, tearing the wire from the fence posts, rolling it up like spaghetti, and eating it. The Iron Man was eating the barbed wire fence. But if he went along the fence, eating as he moved, he wouldn't come anywhere near the trap, which was out in the middle of the field. He could spend the whole night wandering around the countryside along the fences, rolling up the wire and eating it, and never would any fence bring him near the trap. But Hogarth had an idea. In his pocket, among other things, he had a long nail. Not fingernail here, I think it must be a nail that you hammer in. He had a long nail and a knife. He took these out. Did he dare? His idea frightened him. In the silent dusk, he tapped the nail and the knife blade together. Clink, clink, clink. At the sound of the metal, the Iron Man's hands became still. After a few seconds, he slowly turned his head, and the headlamp eyes shone towards Hogarth. Again, clink, 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 the nail on the knife. Slowly, the Iron Man took 3 strides towards Hogarth, and again stopped. He likes that metal sound. He's walking towards Hogarth now. It was now quite dark. The headlamps shone red. Hogarth pressed close to the tree trunk. Between him and the Iron Man lay the wide lid of the trap. Clink, clink, clink. Again he tapped the nail on the knife, and now the Iron Man was coming. Hogarth could feel the earth shaking under the weight of his footsteps. Was it too late to run? Hogarth stared at the Iron Man, looming, searching. Look here. The 2 headlamp eyes turned red. They go green, red, blue. Wonder what that means when they're different colours. Right, let's not get stopped in the middle of our sentence there. Hogarth stared at the Iron Man, looming, searching towards him for the taste of the metal that made that inviting sound. Clink, clink, clink went the nail on the knife, and crash! The Iron Man vanished. He was in the pit. The Iron Man had fallen into the pit. Hogarth went close. The earth was shaking as the Iron Man struggled underground. Hogarth peered over the torn edge of the great pit. Far below, the 2 deep red headlamps glared up at him from the pitch blackness. It's an angry stare, a glare. He could hear the Iron Man's insides grinding down there, and it sounded like a big lorry grinding its gears on a steep hill. Hogarth set off. He ran home with the great news, and as he passed the cottages on the way, and as he turned down the lane towards his father's farm, he was shouting, "The Iron Man's in the trap! We've caught the Iron Giant!" When the farmers saw the Iron Man wallowing in their deep pit, they sent up a great cheer. He glared up towards them. His eyes burned from red to purple, from purple to white, from white to fiery, whirling black and red, and the cogs inside him ground and screeched, but he could not climb out of the steep-sided pit. Then, under the lights of car headlamps, the farmers brought bulldozers and earth pushers, and they began to push in on top of the struggling Iron Man all the earth they had dug when they first made the pit that had been piled off to one side. The Iron Man roared again as the earth began to fall on him. They're burying him. But soon he roared no more. Soon the pit was full of earth. Soon the Iron Man was buried silent, packed down under all the soil, while the farmers piled the earth over him in a mound and in a hill. They went to and fro over the mound on their new tractors, which they brought since the Iron Man ate their old ones, and they packed the earth down hard. Then they all went home, talking cheerfully. They were sure they had seen the last of the Iron Man. I'll let you see the last pages of this chapter here. We've got Hogarth here, the Iron Man now buried under the soil. Only Hogarth suddenly felt sorry. He felt guilty. It was he, after all, who had lured the Iron Man into the pit. Wonder why you think Hogarth is actually starting to feel a bit bad about doing what the farmers wanted him to do and trapping the giant. Right. We find out what happens next in chapter 3 if the Iron Man is stuck there forever. There's a lot of book left, so you can use your predicting skills to guess what might happen next. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Have a really great long bank holiday weekend, and speak to you again on Monday.